The 49ers signed 10 undrafted free agents this year. I'll run down the list of names, and then I'll tell you what you need to know about each undrafted free agent. Here are the names. Quarterback Brock Rudder from North Central College in Illinois. Running back Salvan Ahmed from Washington. Running back Michael Hasty from Baylor. Fullback Josh Hockett from Fresno State. Wide receiver Chris Fink from Notre Dame. Tight end / defensive end Chase Harrell from Arkansas. Nose tackle Darian Daniels from Nebraska. Linebacker Jonas Griffith from Indiana State. Cornerback DeMarcus Acey from Missouri. And safety Jared Maiden from Alabama. Okay, here's what you need to know about each one real quick. Starting with Brock Rudder, the quarterback. He's 6'1", he's 195 pounds, doesn't have a super strong arm, played in Division III, which is pretty low, but he was a 4-year starter. He threw 1,500 passes in college, threw 145 touchdown passes and only 21 interceptions. He was a prolific passer who managed to not throw many picks, which was Jimmy Garoppolo's biggest issue this year. Who does he remind me of? Obviously, Nick Mullens. Smaller guy, not the strongest arm, but a lot of experience in college. And, you know, the Niners have had success developing that kind of quarterback. It worked with Mullens. The other guy they took in 2017, CJ Beathard, was the opposite of Mullens and Rudder because Beathard played at a big school, Iowa, in a NFL-style offense under center. But what he did in college was basically hand off a lot. And what Kyle Shanahan learned was taking a quarterback from a pro-style offense doesn't make him better suited for the pros. CJ Beathard, all that handing off didn't prepare him to read coverages. He came into the NFL with only about 780 passes in college and was behind the curve. Mullens, while he didn't have Beathard's stature and arm strength, had so much more experience reading coverages, throwing passes, and what Bill Walsh always said, quarterback is a game of repetitions. If you're not a super athlete like Kyler Murray, it's gonna hurt you to only have 1 or 2 years of starting experience after high school. You're behind the curve. Quarterbacks like Nick Mullens and Brock Rudder, who have started 4 years and thrown 1 million passes, are actually more suited for the NFL, even though they don't have amazing physical tools. So Brock Rudder, I'm not saying he's the next Nick Mullens, but that's the mold the Niners are looking for when they signed him. And that's what I'm going to go with each player. Not who they're going to be the next, not who they are not like who like they are 2.0 version of, but who are they in the mold of? Sorry, I butchered that. So Brock Rudder, in the mold of Nick Mullens. Salvan Ahmed, 5'11", 195, ran a 4.6 at the combine, but had been timed at Washington in the 4.4s. And when you watch him play, he's very fast. Who does he remind me of? A guy who's 5'9", 195 pounds, runs a 4.4, and recently was traded to the Dolphins. To me, this is the 49ers' attempt to replace Matt Breda. The Niners signed Matt Breda as an undrafted free agent. Smaller guy, very hard runner, fast, and became a big-time contributor for them. Even started a bunch of games for them. Salvan Ahmed kind of runs the same way. They could use him the same way on special teams as a lead blocker for whoever the punt return or the kick returner is. I think when the Niners look at Salvan Ahmed, they see Matt Breda 2.0. Not that he is Matt Breda, but I think that's the mold. Next, running back Michael Hasty from Baylor. This guy's way different. This guy isn't fast like Ahmed and Breda and Mostert. This guy is, he ran a 4.55, but he's very quick and he specializes in catching passes. And not just like screens and swing passes, but running those little choice routes and dodge routes where he comes out of the backfield and runs right at a linebacker or a safety and does almost like a crossover in basketball and makes a tight 90-degree turn. Those are tough routes for running backs. So usually you see guys like Trent Taylor run. It's the kind of stuff that Roger Craig could do. You know, Alvin Kamara, the best running backs, Christian McCaffrey. It's what Devontae Freeman did for Kyle Shanahan in Atlanta and what Jerick McKinnon was supposed to do for the 49ers. Physically, this Hasty is a lot like Devontae Freeman. Freeman was 5'8", 205, ran a 4.55. Freeman was a third-round pick, I believe. Hasty wasn't drafted. But that's what Shanahan is envisioning for Hasty, that if he ever gets on the team, these are probably practice squad players, but if he ever makes it on the team, he'd be the third down back who can run little choice routes and get open for 7-yard catches on 3rd and 4. All right, fullback Josh Hockett from Fresno State. Now, he's interesting because he's only 6 feet, 225. Most fullbacks are 240, 250. That's what Juszczyk was. This guy's smaller. But that's okay because linebackers in the NFL are getting smaller too. It used to be the typical inside linebacker was 250 pounds. Now a lot of times they're 225, 230. So that makes sense. The other thing that's interesting about Hockett, not a tight end in college. Juszczyk was a tight end in college. It seems like a lot of times NFL teams have success transitioning a tight end from a college tight end to an NFL running back because they're big and they can block. They've experienced blocking. Hockett wasn't a tight end. He was a running back. He was a running back at Fresno State, and he was pretty good, especially in short yardage situations. So he's not in the Juszczyk mold. He's different than Juszczyk. Juszczyk doesn't run the ball much. Good receiver, but really gives you nothing as a runner. And the way the Niners offense is evolving, every single player on the field has to be a running back or a returner, kind of. Everyone has to be a threat to run a jet sweep or an end around or a screen. I mean, Kittle is. Juszczyk is a threat on screens, but not so much as a runner in any way, even in short yardage situations. So the mold I see Hockett filling, potentially living up to, it would be more like a guy like Tom Rathman, who was a running back in college, a little bit smaller, 230 pounds. I'm not saying he's the next Tom Rathman, but he's that kind of fullback, smaller, and a guy who can actually run too. Now, the wide receiver, Chris Fink from Notre Dame. 5'9", 186 pounds, ran a 4.57. Well, Trent Taylor was 5'8", 181 pounds, ran a 4.63. I mean, he's Trent Taylor insurance. He's a tiny little slot receiver like Trent Taylor, third down specialist. Another guy who'll give you a 7-yard catch on 3rd and 4. I mean, it's not the toughest position to find, and you don't have to take him in round 1, but it's the kind of player that the Patriots have featured forever. Julian Edelman, Wes Welker. And it's the kind of player that Jimmy Garoppolo came up throwing to. That's what they do in New England. He has so much chemistry with Trent Taylor. I think it's fair to say that's his favorite receiver on the team. Trent Taylor is probably on the 49ers because Jimmy likes him so much. Trent Taylor hasn't been healthy in 2 years. He may not be healthy this year. And if he's not, they got Trent Taylor insurance and a guy who's quite like him, Chris Fink, Notre Dame. All right, this guy's interesting. The tight end, they also call him a D end from Arkansas, Chase Harrell. I think they're going to develop him as a tight end. He's 6'4", 257 pounds. Ran a 4.53, which is moving for a guy 257 pounds. I ran a 4.51 in college when I was 165 pounds. Also ran a 6'7", 6'3 cone, which is really, really quick, and jumped 36 inches. So undrafted guy, only caught 37 passes in college for 396 yards and 6 touchdowns. Who does this guy remind you of? Extremely good athlete, limited production in college, but strong, athletic, and in this offense, maybe he could be a weapon. It's almost ridiculous to say he's in the George Kittle mold, but he is. I mean, Kittle's 6'4", 247, runs a 4.52, a 7-flat 3-cone, and a 38.5-inch vert. Is it silly to compare an undrafted free agent to Kittle? Well, now it does. It seems that way, but remember, Kittle was a 5th-round pick. He had 48 catches in college. He was a developmental guy. Kyle drafted him because he was a good blocker and a good athlete. And I think what Kyle might say is he made George Kittle. That George Kittle may not have been the great player he was on the 49ers on every team because Kyle can scheme people open. What makes people special in Kyle's offense is what they can do after the catch because Kyle feels he can pretty much get anyone open. So he looks at Chase Harrell and says, boy, same height, even bigger, same speed. I mean, maybe there's something there. Maybe I can make this guy a weapon too. So he's a project. I don't know if he'll ever make the team, but the idea is maybe Kyle Shanahan can develop a second George Kittle, which is interesting because Kittle's going to be a free agent in a year, and he still hasn't received his Mega Mondo extension that he's supposed to get from the 49ers. It's supposed to be the richest contract in tight end history. He's supposed to get paid like a top-level wide receiver. which is interesting because the Niners just decided they didn't want to pay historic money to DeForest Buckner. Could they do something like that? Could they give George Kittle the Buckner treatment? Well, anything's possible after they shipped out Buckner. And it's interesting that they do have a new developmental athlete at tight end. All right, that's it for offense. On defense, you got Darian Daniels from Nebraska, a nose tackle, basically DJ Jones insurance. Jones was a starting nose tackle the last couple of years, but he's missed 18 games in 3 seasons. He'll be a free agent after 2020. He's good when he plays, but will he be on the team in a year? How many games will he miss? How many games will he play next year? You got to have a guy in the reserves. That's Darian Daniels. Linebacker Jonas Griffith, 6'3", 247, ran a 4.62 at his virtual pro day. These defensive guys didn't really get invited to the combine or work out of the combine. They did their virtual pro days and did well. You're seeing NFL teams don't really trust those numbers fully. So those guys a lot of times didn't get drafted. They got taken as undrafted free agents. And then if the Niners, if those players turn out to be not so good, or those times that were posted on YouTube end up being fraudulent, well, the Niners aren't out a draft pick. So this kid, Jonas Griffith, played at Indiana State, but he ran a 4.62 at 247 pounds, 6'3". I'm just saying, Fred Warner at the combine is 6'3", 236 pounds, ran a 4.64. So Griffith may not be the next Fred Warner, but that's the mold. They're seeing could develop into maybe Warner's backup, a similar athlete. Finally, the defensive backs. Cornerback DeMarcus Acey from Missouri. Jonas Griffith was from Indiana State. DeMarcus Acey from Missouri, 6 feet. He was listed at 6'2", but NFL Draft Scout listed him at 6 feet, 195 pounds, ran a 4.45 at his virtual pro day. Who does that remind me of? Former undrafted free agent Emanuel Mosley, 5'11", 190, 4.42. I think the Niners feel like they may have found something. Clearly, Emanuel Mosley doesn't fit the mold of the type of corner the Niners draft. They want 6'3" corners who run for big guys. But they've had some success with shorter guys that they take after the draft. AC could be the next Mosley. The Niners are banking on that. Final defensive back, Jared Maiden from Alabama, 6 feet, 201 pounds, ran a 4.47 when he was an underclassman, didn't get to run this year. Supposed to be even faster than 4.47, maybe even 4.3. So kind of a do-it-all defensive back, can play safety, can play corner, can play nickel, mid-size, 6 feet, 200 pounds, 4.4 speed. Who does that remind you of? To me, that reminds me of Adrian Kolbert. Remember the 7th round pick from 2017, started off at corner, moved to safety, really good on special teams, still in the league. That's the way I think of it. The Niners have had success signing certain types of players or drafting certain types of players late, and they're looking to repeat that success, even repeating the George Kittle success of 3 years ago. So that's my rundown of the Niners undrafted free agents. Who do these guys remind you of?